Hey everyone, Kibler here, and today I wanted to do a video talking a little bit about the recent balance changes that were announced for Hearthstone. By the time this is up, they will be live, and I actually had been thinking of doing a video, planning on doing a video, basically around when the time that they announced that they were going to be making balance changes. So I decided, okay, I'm going to wait until the balance changes have been announced and talk about what they actually do and sort of my thoughts on sort of the state of the metagame and such in Standard, rather than like make suggestions when they're about to do something anyway. So, for those of you who may have missed it, Blizzard announced and again, we'll have, at the time this is up, implemented changes to Renew, now costing 2 mana, Apotheosis, now giving +1/+2 rather than +2/+3, as well as Gibberling, now costing 2 mana. Specifically, what they said that they were aiming to address here was the degree of spell generation in Priest, as well as amount of burst healing in Priest, and the kind of non-games that specifically Token Druid can frequently generate. And I do think, having heard these specific motivations, that these are the cards that it makes sense for them to have targeted. In fact, when they made the announcement and they said they were changing 3 cards, I was like, they're gonna make Renew cost 2, they're gonna change Gibberling to cost 2, and they're gonna change Apotheosis. And my initial thought was that they would change Apotheosis to just be +1 attack, rather than also cutting off a bit of the health as well. But they, hit it a little bit harder, made it +1/+2 rather than +1/+3, which was kind of my guess of what they'd do. And I've seen a lot of people saying, well, this sucks if you look at the tier lists. Priest isn't even tier 1, why are they hitting Priest? And I think that, if you look at the commentary from, top competitive players, as well as just the metagame actually at Legend, High Legend, Priest is extremely powerful, extremely dominant. If you look at I think the bans from the recent Masters Tour event, pretty much every player intended to ban Priest. Almost every player played Priest. It was the most banned deck, and it has, or at least had, an incredible amount of both power and flexibility in a way that makes it very difficult to really defeat. And not just in the sense that, oh, it's really good, but it generates frustrating play experiences because of the sheer amount of spell generation that it has. And I know there's a lot of people out there who, they hate Discover, they hate resource generation anyway. They're like, play with the cards to start in your deck. And I'm not one of those people. I love Discover. I actually think Discover is probably my favorite mechanic, perhaps in any game ever, like any card game ever. I love the fact that Discover gives players the opportunity to have significantly variable play experiences while also rewarding strong choices, because it is a choice of what you pick from a Discover rather than just sort of random generation. And I really frankly enjoy random generation to a certain extent too. But I have also felt that Priest was in a spot that wasn't fun, that wasn't healthy prior to, at least, to these changes. And the biggest thing, there's 2 factors. One, I think there's a big difference between discovering spells in a class like Priest and a certain extent in a class like Mage, right? So many of the spells in Mage are kind of a lot of them are very similar, right? It's like burn you, kill a guy, freeze you, whatever. Whereas Priest, there's just a ton of different removal effects, and some of them are very dramatic removal effects. Obviously, there's a big difference if someone gets Fireballs with Flame Strike in Mage, but so much of the concentration of spells in Priest are in removal effects. And in fact, frequently in removal effects that are extremely strong, extremely high impact, things like Against All Odds, Hysteria, or one of the most frustrating, Soul Mirror, particularly given that it's a legendary spell and you theoretically only have one in a deck. The number of games where you play against a Priest who has like 2 or 3 Soul Mirrors makes it really pretty obnoxious. And again, it's not just a matter of like discovering spells existing. It's a matter of how often it happens, and a matter of like how good the spells are that you can discover from. That's another sort of change in, obviously with the core set, we saw the increased power level in things like Jandis or Apexis Blast, Font of Power. Any kind of discover or random effect was kind of jacked up a bit in power level because there's so many fewer weak things from the classic set or from a year's worth of card pool. And so the Priest Discover pool is relatively small. We're in the first set of the year with the core set having paired out most of the weak Priest cards that did exist in the classic set. And you're pretty much guaranteed to get something good. And frankly, a lot of these things also discover other things, right? The fact that, you can renew into palm reading, or palm reading into renew, or the big one, and this is part of what I was sort of getting at before, is the number of things that generate you not only another something, but also generate additional resources. I actually think the biggest problem card in these priest decks has actually been Raised Dead. Raised Dead's sort of in a weird spot, because changing Raised Dead doesn't just change it for priest, it changes it for warlock too, because it is a dual class card. And Raised Dead, I think, specifically became so powerful with the introduction of the South Sea Scoundrel and Venomous Scorpion. Priests can very readily play a suite of creatures, a suite of minions, that just continue to discover additional stuff, and then you Raise Dead and you get back more things that then generate more things that can maybe generate more Raised Deads, or specifically in the case of like Wandmaker could generate Renew, and now it can't. And that is the reason that I actually like this change a lot. I don't think that changing Raised Dead is necessarily like a reasonable direction to go, given the context of the Warlock class, and I think that hitting the things that make Raised Dead powerful, like the fact that Wandmaker could generate Renew, or the fact that Renew could easily mitigate the life loss of Raised Dead, I think that hitting Renew is actually kind of like a multi-pronged attack on all the things that kind of made Priest powerful. You lose a lot of the ability to keep your health total incidentally high. You lose a lot of the ability to generate like whatever from Wandmaker. And frankly, just the power level reduction of the kind of Wandmaker Raised Dead chain helps a lot to like make it so that you're just less likely over the course of especially a longer game to be able to generate even like an additional Soul Mirror, right? It's interesting that changing Raised Dead, or rather changing Renew, has that big of an influence on that, because it's not just what your Renews can do if you put them in your deck, but it's the fact that Wandmaker can no longer get Renew that is the biggest part of that particular change. So I think that's probably the kind of most elegant thing that they could do to impact Renew. I think that, or rather to impact Priest broadly, is this change to Renew, because it does kind of have these systemic reaching changes across the rest of the sort of like way that the card pool works together. As for Apotheosis, the Apotheosis change, I think, largely hits the Samuro Apotheosis like massive board swing, and is a really big deal. I think Apotheosis has been one of the most powerful cards in Priest for a long time, and it wasn't as powerful when Priest didn't have access to powerful rush minions, right? When you had to stick a minion, even if you had to stick a minion and then Apotheosis it was still really powerful. But the combination specifically of Samuro plus Apotheosis is just absolutely backbreaking. You need to kill a Priest basically in a turn, and the combination of like, okay, well, they have their hero power to heal themselves, they had Renews that they would keep getting from Wandmakers and keep healing themselves, and then they'd have Samuro Apotheosis if you got them low to try and kill them over the course of 2 turns, so it was like unsafe to like play a board, or to like not just try in 1 turn kill them, or whatever. There's all these things that's made it very, very difficult to play against Priest in any way that like kind of felt like it had a coherent strategy, right? The combination of their ability to answer so many different things so readily, and the fact that you couldn't play around a specific number of anything they have, right? Because the combination of Discover effects and Raised Dead frequently meant that like they'd have a second Samuro and a third Apotheosis to clear your board when you thought it was safe, or yet another Soul Mirror or whatever. And kind of one of the things I was referring to before, I think that there's a big difference between like, you discover all of these powerful reactive cards versus like you discover like minions, right? Like I think that a lot of players were a bit frustrated by the lackeys previously, and one of them being Draconic Lackey, given these big endgame win conditions. But those are pretty different in terms of like, okay, you have to know that you have to play against probably a big thing, versus like, all right, the way that you at least try to intelligently maneuver around beating some sort of control deck is, all right, well, I'm gonna bait out their Soul Mirror and then play my thing, which is vulnerable to Soul Mirror. But when they frequently have so many copies of all of these things because of the sheer density of Discover effects and things that continue to generate more things that generate Discover effects, like the Raised Dead chain I was talking about, it makes it so you feel kind of like helpless. You're just like, I guess I do this and hope they don't have it. And that isn't really a satisfying gameplay experience. And I think that kind of mitigating all of that from the way that Priest kind of currently exists with these changes should help a lot to make the gameplay feel better, at least. So I really do think these are solid changes. The fact that It makes Priest no longer have just this get-out-of-jail-free Reno effect with Samuro Apotheosis. It's much less impactful. Still probably very good, but maybe, you know, they end up with Samuro plus Power Word Feast plus Apotheosis to actually be able to do these big swings. And obviously they can do this. It doesn't get rid of the fact that these things are possible, but it mitigates how frequently they happen, and that is a really big deal. The Gibberling change, I don't think anyone is really upset about. I do see, like I said, a lot of people are kind of like, why are they nerfing Priest? Blah. But Gibberling, I think, clearly is the biggest culprit in most of the kind of non-games that do exist with Token Druid, where they play turn 1 Gibberling into Innervate, Lightning Bloom, whatever. Like suddenly they have just like a board on turn 1 or 2 or 3 that's virtually impossible to actually deal with. So I think that everyone but the most hardened and passionate Token Druid players are likely to be pretty happy about that change. But overall, this set of changes I'm very, very happy with. I have been a little bit less excited about playing Standard for a bit because it has kind of felt like a little bit stale, and hopefully this will kind of invigorate it a little bit more prior to the release of United in Stormwind, which, by the way, I am very excited for. I didn't do a video talking specifically about United in Stormwind, but I love the tradable mechanic. I think it's one of the best things that Hearthstone kind of introduced in a while, and I'm really curious to see what all they produce with tradable. One thing that I have seen a lot of people complaining about, by the way, with the Priest nerfs is like, oh, but Doomhammer Shaman is, so powerful. I can't believe they're letting Doomhammer Shaman exist and nerfing Priest. It's like, well, with Doomhammer Shaman, you can play weapon removal and kill their Doomhammer, and that's massively impactful because you killed their thing that cost 5 and overloaded them for 2. And now, not only with United in Stormwind coming out, could you play Acidic Swamp Ooze and have this card, which is very good against Doomhammer Shaman. You could also play the new tradable weapon removal card if you wanted to have even more, and not just be stuck with them in your hand when you're playing against other decks. Or any deck can very easily play, the 3/4 for 3 that kills a weapon, has tradable, and not worry that you draw it in bad matchups. And that is, I think, really the sort of crux of what makes tradable so exciting, is that Hearthstone is a game in which they don't have like a sideboard like, for instance, Magic the Gathering does, so it can be somewhat difficult to play situational cards in a lot of decks, when, especially in classes that don't have strong card draw, they can be a dead draw and leave you in an awkward position in tougher matchups. But with tradable, you can just put them back into your deck and find something else, and still have access to these powerful, potentially situational cards like weapon removal. So I love that. I think it has tremendous design space. I'm really excited to see what they do with it. So if you are someone who is really upset about the state of Doomhammer Shaman, and is sad that Priest got nerfed and thought it was your best chance to beat it, put some oozes in your deck, and then when United in Stormwind comes out, put even more oozes in your deck, and make everyone regret that they ever played a Doomhammer against. But anyway, so let me know what you all think about these changes. I am excited to experiment with new decks and see what the world looks like when Priests aren't oppressing everyone with their endless array of discovered spells. Like I said, I feel like this is probably the best set of changes that could be done without really shoving things around. I've heard people say stuff like, they should make it that cards that discover can't discover other cards that discover. It's like, it's kind of a weird thing. They obviously already have like, you can't discover something that discovered itself. You can't like renew into renew anymore like you could a while ago, and that would have been truly disgusting in this world of one maker raised and whatnot. But yeah, I do think it is the sort of most elegant way that they can address what I viewed to be the problems that existed in Priest, and I'm excited to see what the metagame looks like with those implemented. So anyway, like I said, let me know what you think of the changes and what you're looking forward to seeing from United in Stormwind as well, because that is coming out in just a couple weeks. So hopefully this will tide us over until then, keep Standard fun, and yeah, I look forward to both the new metagame now and even more to the new set coming soon. So thanks for watching. See you next time.